Hello, my fellow... Hello, my fellow readers. I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. As well as, finally, make sure to read the story before watching this video. Thank you, and come again. Yeah, I had to bring back my Mawile because Vivian's arm is damaged and I need to get Thread to fix her up. Isn't that right? Good, now let's stay on my bed. Go, shoo. Because we're not talking about Pokemon, we're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! The final story of the Shadowchasers series, Tournament of Shadows, which is written not only by Occam's Razor, but also by multiple where is it? Here it is. It's written about 3 people. Yeah. Occam's Razor, 7th Library, and multiple personas. As you all know, yesterday I posted a video that actually tied into this review. Go watch it as well. But we're not here to play some Yu-Gi Mans. We're here to watch. We're here to talk about some Yu-Gi Man story. I don't know why I had that still up. So let's get into the review. The review actually starts a unknown amount of time in the future from Conspiracy. This is kind of weird on the timeline because with the previous stories we have like a set timeline, like okay, the original one, and then immediately after it's Primordial. Then a couple months later it was Torment as well as Soulscape, which happened around the same time. And then about a couple years later, we had Conspiracy, not Conspiracy, Ascension. And then about a year later, another couple years later, we had Conspiracy. I don't really know what the timeline on Tournament of Shadows is. Oh, bear with me. The Shadowchasers have taken a huge hit in their reputation. And so Jalal, the leader of the Shadowchasers, in all his infinite wisdom, decides to think of a plan. He thinks, and he thinks hard. And then he cooks some dinner for his daughter, and then he thinks some more. And then he gets an idea. What if we have a tournament? And so he plans this plan with a name called John Claude to set up this big tournament between the Shadowchaser organization and 50 pro duelists, 50 members of the organization, 50 unknown tournament competitors, all duking it out for a cash prize to donate to their favorite charity. But something's afoot. What that afoot is, you'll have to read the story and find out. But in real talk, now that we got the basis of it, this is just a typical tournament story with a lot of twists and turns in the second half. And it's really excellent because remember my review of Conspiracy where I said despite one of my problems with Conspiracy is despite having a whole bunch of characters, it never really focused on one. We never really had a central character, or whenever there was an attempt to have a central character, it always switched to someone else, and thus we never really got attached to a... Excuse me, I actually just woke up. We never really got attached to some of the characters. This story is kind of the same way, but we have a central character, and we'll talk about him later. Oh, we'll talk about him later. The story stars Ember from the original and Power Primordial, Natalie from Torment, a character by the name of Bruno Von Klein. Again, we'll talk about him later. Wink, wink. Two characters named Ace and Kenshin, which are from the Backwaters and Risen Nemesis, and also a character. And that's it. There was another character, but the author who worked on the story had to leave and got replaced by 7th Librarian. So, there's that. Yeah, I'm tired. the story typically follows the same old when it comes to the Shadowchasers story. In terms of the plot, something happens, duel, something happens, duel. However, as we lead into the characters part, this is where this story shines. This story has the most personality of any of the Shadowchasers stories ever, and that's owing to the fact that, one, this is more of a relaxed story. At first, it does get super serious later on, but once the story starts out, we get a lot of more relaxing scenario where it's just, oh, a bunch of the members just get to goof off and relax and have a tournament and compete for their favorite charity. And we get a lot of very creative characters all throughout the story. Like, there's a lot of really good, memorable characters, even if they only appear for once or twice. Like Jotunheim, who is a duelist from about Iceland or Switzerland, around there, who duels using a duel robot because she's agoraphobic. There is legacy characters, which are based off old characters from the original anime. So we got like a modern day Weevil, we got a modern day Rex Raptor, and we got a modern day Bandit Keith named Pirate Keith because gotta have the pirate. Also, this is actually strange very much. It's like the third story there where the author had the pirate archetype with ghost fusion. I keep yawning. I don't know why I keep yawning. No, not ghost fusion. With the Flying Dutchman. He must really like that card. Like, really like that card. And there is a lot of personality throughout the entire story. We have all the characters we have all the monsters kind of like weirdly interacting. It's like, it's what I liked in Torment kind of cranked up to 11. And I actually want to bring attention to one part. I know I'm going to be spoiling this specific part, but honestly, this is so cool that I at least want to talk about it. So, and this has to do with Natalie. Now, I like Natalie as a character. If next to Bruno, she's probably the best written character of all the Shadowchasers main protagonist. And that's just across all the stories I've read so far, not just this one. But Natalie and Bruno are probably the best written. Natalie uses Amazonians. And a really cool detail that a lot of people will miss, and the reason why I'm saying this tiny bit will be spoilers. No more spoilers after this until the end. In the story, whenever Natalie was summoned a Amazonian at the beginning, they actually had a costume change. Like they would be decked out in more tribal outfits. Like with Swordswoman, she has a bunch of skulls around her neck. She has like tougher armor, and she has like a grim determination on her face. And at first you think this is kind of like weird, because it's like, wait, the Amazonians, they got a new art change, which is actually not uncommon. It's actually very common for certain cards to get alternate arts, like Dark Magician Girl, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Red Eyes Black Dragon. A lot of them have a lot of alternate arts. So anyone who played the game for long enough would think, oh, maybe all the Amazonians, maybe all the old Amazonians got alternate arts. It's not uncommon, especially since in the Shadowchasers universe, the only actual dual monsters character that's actually still alive was revealed in Conspiracy to be my Valentine, but that's like a whole can of words with that story. So it's not uncommon for Mai to just say, hey, you think you can get like alternate arts for all my Amazonians? Please? So one would think, it's like, oh, it's alternate art, that's fine. I think nothing of it. No! The artwork, them looking different, is actually a foreshadowing to the fact that the Amazonians were actually the very first people to know that something was going on behind the scenes with the tournament. And I love that little detail. Right before anything, any darkness, any shenanigans hit the fan, the Amazonians were right there, already knowing what was going to happen. Something bad was going to happen. They knew it, and they were subtly telling the readers that something's going to happen. We're not going to tell you what, but we're going to tell you that something's going to happen. But I like the characters. We had a good, robust amount of characters. We got to see Ember again, which is nice. I do like her character. Natalie is still good as always. Ace and Kenshin, they're not really that good. I mean, this is more due to the fact that I haven't really read the story these two are from, which are Ace is from Risen Nemesis and Kenshin's from Backwaters. I'm not going to read Backwaters because that's mostly just miscellaneous stuff. I may read Risen Nemesis in the back sometime because that takes place in Las Vegas, and I actually would like to see that story, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And then you get Bruno von Klein. Again, just wait for it. But the thing I like with this story, with the use of the characters and the plot is all the characters are important. This isn't like Conspiracy where we see a lot of characters, but a lot of them are just kind of there for the most part. We have, and especially since Conspiracy has a lot of characters. It has Sophia, Philip, Dugan, Carl, Francis. There's a lot of characters and a lot of splitting between them. But with this story, we have 5 characters, and all 5 are presented as equal in the sense that they're all main characters. Granted, Bruno's kind of the main character, but that's not the point of it, But they're all presented as equal rather than fragmented. So, yes, we do see them duel, and they're separate for the most part until they get to Pegasus' castle, because guess where the tournament takes place? Duelist Kingdom! And we see, and we get a lot of, and, they're still presented as equals. And even after those, we have a lot of extra characters. Again, I already mentioned Jotunheim. We got Jill Chambers, who's like a Dullahan who does turbo duels, and she doesn't even have a head. She just has a helmet, and she talks through like text to speak. Again, Bandit Keith. I like Pirate Keith, not Bandit Keith. Pirate Keith. We have Juarez, who is like a cryptozoologist, and he's a really cool guy that Bruno likes that connects with him throughout the entire duel. Even the villain near the end is probably the best written villain of the entire series. There's a reason why I wanted to save this one for last, because this is bar none the best plot, the best character, the best villain, the best writing, the best everything. It is a little shaky when it comes to the writing because there's multiple people writing the story, and so the writing styles kind of clash. This is especially true if you read the Bruno duels. His dueling style has like the person who writes his duels, multiple personas, actually writes it completely different from how Occam's Razor writes his duels. As you can see, so it's part of the reason why Bruno's kind of stands out, because his character has like more care. But grammar errors, nothing. No grammar errors, nothing, nada. Except for like a couple name changes here, again, standard stuff. Pacing, remember how I said in previous stories where a big problem I had is the fact that there's always something always happens, and the duel happens like not for 90% of the chapter, and then it ends. This is the only story where I actually forgive that because of the setting, because it's a tournament. You're not really expecting a big story until the second half, because that's where the big story beats happen. So until that happens, it's just someone shows up, challenges you to a duel, you get the duel, you're done. Not only that, but with the use of all the characters and each character getting their own little character arc throughout the duel, like with Jotunheim, okay, so I'm just gonna use Jotunheim as an example. In the duel where it's Bruno versus Jotunheim, duel actually don't even start. It's Jotunheim using a remote machine basically spooks Bruno and scares him and Natalie and another girl to try and like strong arm him into giving them the money to get her closer. Bruno calls bullshit, saying that you technically assaulted us in a safe area, therefore you should be disqualified. Jotunheim kind of realizes, oh shit, I did, and tries to apologize. The three people, Bruno, Natalie, and the girl, they kind of realize something's up with this. They don't really, something's kind of off about this movie because they don't know it's a person behind the machine. They just think it's just a machine being autonomously ran. And so Bruno offers a duel. So I just want a duel. Let me just duel and just do all this stuff. And so Bruno offers a dueler under the condition that if you lose, that it's an all or nothing. You basically, for cheating us, you're not gonna get any sympathy. You're gonna bet everything, or you're gonna lose. And so they duel. Jotunheim uses a satellite cannon deck that focuses on basically the old satellite cannon from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Virtual World arc that Nesbit used against Kaiba. Bruno kind of slowly starts to piece together that something's. It's more than that because they think, you're supposed to use a physical duel disc to prevent cheating. The robot's like, oh no, I'm using a disc. Don't worry. And that's like the first clue you get that something's going on behind the scenes. And how Jotunheim gets caught is the simple fact that another character, Baba Yaga, who is a different character who has a connection to Bruno, hacks into Jotunheim's scream and turns off the mask and basically reveals her as like just a mousy nerd girl in like a locked up, like a very closed off room playing like an actual dual disc, and she's still like yelling. I'm just like, what are you looking at? It's like, you're a girl. and then the whole thing kind of comes out. And then after that, they kind of feel sorry for her because it's very obvious that she's uncomfortable doing this, but they still want to finish the duel, and Jotunheim doesn't want any sympathy. She's like, no, I will finish this duel. I will become the greatest duelist, and I will prove that people like me can succeed. Basically, people who are like, if you don't know what agoraphobic is, they're people who don't really like going outside. They like being locked up. It's basically the opposite of claustrophobia. And it's a great story that happens in the space of a single chapter. And it's closed off because there's no really any connection. Once they get to the castle, then the duels start interconnecting into a coherent story. And that's actually where it gets even better. I like the single one-off stories that happen in the duels that tell you everything that you need to know about the characters, how they behave, and how fun they are. And it's interesting. Even when it gets into the latter half, when they actually start connecting and they have to try and stop the bad guy, it doesn't lose that sense of wanting everything, but instead of focusing on the extra characters like Jotunheim and Ares and Kion and Rebecca, it closes off into the main 5 characters, and we get to explore their characters even more. And that makes this story just really good. So I know there's not much to talk about because again, it's just the first half is just entirely just a tournament, just a simple tournament, and I don't want to spoil the second half. So let's get to what I recommend it. Hell yes, this is again by far the best story, the best written, the best written characters, the best written villain, the best paced, the best everything. Would I change anything about the story? No, I wouldn't change anything, except for maybe clean up a couple grammar errors that are scattered. Best part. Bruno. Now, I did kind of mention Bruno in the previous story, that's why I said watch the previous story. But this bears repeating. Bruno, out of every single character across all the Shadowchasers stories, is by far the best written one. Natalie is by far the best developed because not only does she have not only is Torment probably second best because it explores her and Dugan and even Carl to an extent. She's also the main character of, well, one of the two main characters of Shackle City, so we get to go into more of her backstory. But Bruno is right next to her in terms of the best written one. He is a portly guy from Munich who is excited by the thrill of the hunt of finding a strong duelist, who is accompanied by this duel spirit named Alice in Despairland, who is a duel spirit that appeared in like an end credit scene of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. So she's apparently an actual card in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World that we only saw for like a few frames in the anime at the end of an episode that's showcasing another episode that's coming soon. It's really weird. But he's a really, really well-developed character. He doesn't come to Duelist Kingdom for any really selfless terms. He comes completely for a selfish term. He wants to find strong duelists to duel and beat because apparently something happened in the past where he dueled someone and lost, and he became really obsessed with the idea of trying to avenge that loss and finding strong duelists and using Alice in Despairland to do it. Alice in Despairland is actually her own character. She's actually and this is where we spoil things. She's actually a fragment of Maximilian Pegasus' soul, who was locked into a cart because Pegasus couldn't properly grieve over his wife's death, so he separated, using the Madelinium Eye, separated part of his soul, turned it into Alice in Despairland, and thus when Pegasus died of old age, he actually couldn't leave the mortal plane. So that actually plays a part in Bruno's entire character. When he gets there, he wants to become stronger, but then but then Alice starts talking to him, and they actually get a little report where Alice just desperately wants him to go to Pegasus Castle because he's there. He's really there. And then we find out everything about Pegasus and Alice in Despairland being a fragmented piece of him, which actually leads into how Bruno von Klein works as a character. He doesn't seem like much because his whole shtick is that he quotes Lewis Carroll works, particularly Alice in Wonderland. His whole deck is literally just Alice cards. Basically, all of his spell cards are based off certain scenes in Alice in Wonderland, and all the monsters are based off actual characters from that story, with the main cards being Alice in Despairland and Alice Little. It's a really good deck, and his duels are probably the best written ones. I was really entertained by the final duel of the story, which was Bruno versus Pegasus, and Pegasus is like, well, we got to do the same thing Yami did, so we got to have a duel, and haha, and it's also gonna be a show duel, and everyone's like, don't worry, it's nothing bad. It's just if I win, I just have to hang out with Bruno for like a year, and then I go, and they're like, oh, thank God. And even then, that duel's like mainly comedy because again, Pegasus uses toon monsters, and instead of like dueling normally, it's just a bunch of Looney Tune yags. Especially since Alice gets involved. Like, picture Alice in Despairland getting involved, and they do like she's chasing the Gemini elves, the Toon Gemini elves, and they do like the whole little painting gag where they go into the painting, and then Alice crashes into the painting. It's very entertaining. It's not my favorite duel. My favorite duel is actually the final duel between the 5 main characters and the villain. Honestly, probably the best written duel of the entire Shadowchasers stories. I don't know who written that. It was a collaboration between Multiple Personas and Occam's Razor, but that's bar none the best written duel. Just absolutely perfect. At the perfect stage, perfect pacing. Just excellent at how it did everything. But back to Bruno. Bruno is a complex character, and I think part of it is the fact that, unlike every other character, apparently he doesn't actually appear. He doesn't even have his own story. He's part of like a miscellaneous file written by Multiple Personas. That's whose whole purpose is just to give some backstory for, for other Shadow Chasers characters, and Bruno just happened to be one. And apparently, he was actually the one that was popular enough to get like a second chapter. And then he was brought over here where we got a full character arc with him, and it really worked. He was a character concept that really should not have worked, and yet he did, and that makes it completely epic. The fact that he did work, and I love the character for that. He brought a lot of personality to the story. Honestly, if not for Bruno, the story probably would have fallen apart. I think Bruno made the story way better because he brought stability. He brought a purpose to everything that was going on. All the key moments actually happened through him, whether it's him doing something or where he's going or anything happening. You know, that's just how it goes. And makes me wish we could have gotten more on his character and more on the Munich Shadow Chasers as a whole. But that's fine. So, before I end this, I thought instead of doing a farewell, I might as well pick some ideas on what I think future Shadow Chaser stories might do. Now, this will be spoiling not only the story, but also Conspiracy. So, but I didn't want to separate it into a different video. I honestly thought, I've been doing Shadow Chasers long enough, and I want to end it here. There will be one more video that comes out, I think, hopefully Friday, which is another duel between me and my friend using the Wonderland cards. So let's do it. First idea. I would like a full backstory on Bruno. I know, not anything past Tournament of Shadows. I mean, there's not really much you can do from after that, except for maybe if you want to do, like, I don't know, the Roger Rabbit angle, because in his duel with Pegasus has, like, a fusion monster, and it's literally just Roger Rabbit. I mean, you can use, I mean, come on. If you want, just have Bruno Von Klein and Funny Bunny doing like Eddie Valiant shit, and then goofing off, and then actually meeting with like other dual spirits to solve problems. Like an idea for a sequel for Bruno is just Chapter 1. The White Magician and Black Magician, Pikaru and Kiran, show up. They beat each other. They smack each other up like very cartoonishly, and they want to settle the rivalry. So Funny Bunny and Bruno and Rebecca try to solve the rivalry. It's like we gotta defeat a definitive winner. Maybe. And even then, when it comes to characters for that story, you could have. Oh, I kicked the chair. You could have Bruno, probably all of Pegasus's Toon Monsters as like background characters, just heckle Bruno on. Especially King Funny Bunny, he'd probably be the second partner in crime. Rebecca, Kion, and Voltaire, who is basically the guy who's in charge of keeping Pegasus' deck. I mean, if you're gonna have a story based around Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you might as well just and another character has Pegasus' deck to kind of bridge that gap. You might as well just have them there too. But in terms of prequel, I would like to see how we met Alice in Despairland. Getting to know Alice in Despairland, because honestly, she's probably the weakest character. The author made the most of her, but I do think there should be more background into growing her character as a whole. Obviously, this story would probably end with him going to Duelist Kingdom, so him getting to the event Tournament of Shadows. That's fine. Idea number 2. We need a full background on Kenshin. Next to Alice, Kenshin's probably the weakest character. Mainly because Kenshin comes from Backwater, and Backwater's kind of a mess story-wise. It's basically just a loose collection of backgrounds for certain Shadow Chasers, but it's incomplete, and so we don't really know the whole story. Especially since this story introduces a character named Orphan, who's basically a very twisted version of Yukimoto. So Orphan's backstory is he was a guy obsessed with games, and he found Kenshin, who was And Kenshin is like a Tsukimoni of a NES. Basically, she's basically a living Nintendo's entertainment system. Orphan takes care of her, but then he slowly starts to go in mad with power and starts creating twisted shadow games using gambling. If you think this sounds familiar, it definitely is, because this backstory is directly inspired by Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, where the Pharaoh is more antagonistic and will even kill people, whether with any sorts of chance games, any kind of card games, dice games, that sort of thing. And so this was basically this. So Kenshin manages to wrest her way away from Orphan, finds an adult Yugi, and then her and him kind of work together to try and take down Orphan. I think when it comes to any sort of thing working on any of the characters, Kenshin's probably the biggest one that needs to be done, because you have this gigantic plot hole that needs to be filled in with Orphan, because just having Kenshin, a half-baked character, released from a half-baked story, and then you have the fact that she met Yugimoto, the fact that Orphan was basically like season 0 Yami, it feels kind of like a story that needs to be told. At the same time, if it's not being told, then Kenshin's character in Tournament of Shadows really suffers for it. And honestly, you don't even have to have any Yu-Gi-Oh! Dueling at all, except for probably a duel between Yugi and Kenshin, just to show her how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works, stuff like that. But instead, it'll mostly focus on channeling the Season 0, where it's more different games, again, Yugi's the king of games. Why not use that? Ace is fine. There is, at the end, Natalie went to South America to work with a bunch of fire giants. Honestly, there should be a small story that kind of focuses on her trying to find purpose, because at the end she realizes that she doesn't really have a purpose anymore, and she doesn't really know what to do and how to find herself. Hence why Jalal sent her there. When it comes to the conspiracy characters, you can do a story where there's one specific plot that's not really finished, and that was actually the plot between Francis and Shiva. Like, how cool? Okay, and this is just pure fan service. How cool would it be if Shiva finds out how to get back to the real world and ask Francis for help, because Francis and Shiva, they kind of get a friendship. Shiva was kind of a bad guy, but she believed more in like the idea of of friendship. Like she when she dueled Francis and she met Francis, she kind of found kinship. And they even had a little mention in the story of Conspiracy, where she kind of talks about her backstory, and she realizes there's tons of gaps. It's like, I'm married to someone, but I don't know who, because it's actually not in the lore who she's married to. It's mentioned that she's married, but never mentioned who. And I like that idea, especially since at the end of Conspiracy, Babyhood was launched into the Game of Thrones, and the device that moves people from different worlds was buried in a bunch of rubble. What if it was transferred to another book, and Babyhood, being an interdimensional traveler, found some way to cross into other worlds without entering the real world? Like, she used some kind of magic from Game of Thrones. She finds a world where, or maybe you could do some kind of meta thing where since Game of Thrones is a multiple series work, you could have it like the device ended up in a future series story of Game of Thrones, and Babyhood manages to live long enough to get to that point where she finds it, she tinkers with it, and she wants revenge specifically on Francis and Shiva, because they're the ones that kind of screwed her over at the end. So she goes to Babyhood goes to the Mortal Kombat universe, starts wrecking everything because she doesn't really care about honor and stuff like that. So she's just really cared about killing people. Shiva manages to get away because BB Hood's after Shiva. Shiva manages to find a device, or get Raiden or even Shinnok or Havoc to open a portal to get Francis, and so you can have a little crossover between Yu-Gi-Oh and Mortal Kombat, where Francis kind of teaches the whole Mortal Kombat crew how to play Yu-Gi-Oh. That would be hilarious, especially now we have like an actual martial art archetype, the dual avatar archetype. That could be his deck in the story, like they kind of symbolically put him with the Earth Realm. His deck can be switched to the dual avatars, which are fusion monsters that are based off martial arts. That'd be cool. And they all team up, and him and Shiva, they kind of team up. Shiva gets to introduce him to, like, send him, bring him around Mortal Kombat. You can do a lot of stuff with this. BB Hood gets, like, a lot of characters from other mediums to help her, basically just kill everything. And you could do a lot of stuff with that. You can even have a gag where Freddy Krueger shows up with, like, Dystopia the Despondent. It's like, ah! And just punches stuff. It's like, I'm gone! But I think those are the three main ideas, like a backstory for Kenshin, a backstory for Bruno, and possibly a Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and also the whole idea with Francis going into the Mortal Kombat universe. And also, let's see, is there anything else? Maybe an extra chapter compendium, Tournament of Shadows, with like giving full backstories and like little scenarios with the duelists from Tournament of Shadows, like with Jotunheim. Like that would actually be a cool story in itself. Like, how did Jotunheim kind of using this robot to want to duel, but she can't because she has agoraphobia, and the duel committee says you have to be there in person, and her trying to change the status quo. It would technically be a political story, but I think with Jotunheim's character that'd be good, or with Juarez's character kind of with his whole stick becoming like actually being slightly kind of noticing that there's some things going on, and Bruno wanting to help him. You can do a little backstory with him and some of the other characters. Maybe do like a comedy story with Pirate Keith being Pirate Keith. Like you can do something stupid with him, like saying like, in Australia. Like you can do a bunch of stuff with that. But yeah, those are just some ideas. So I'm happy that the Shadowchasers stories ended on such a high note. It went up and down throughout the story. Tournament of Shadows and Torment are the two best ones. But yeah, I'm happy to finally move on to the next story. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut. And thank you.